Hello and welcome. I'm Leigh-Ann Gerrans and you're watching W News Extra, broadcasting live from the Al Arabiya headquarters. These are our top stories. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney insists some places are never for sale whilst meeting President Trump at the White House. The Kremlin warns Kyiv against attacks as Russia pushes ahead for its planned 72-hour ceasefire. And prophecy makers, we speak to the former Simpsons writer as the show is credited with predicting the future. Now to our top story, and President Trump has welcomed his Canadian counterpart Mark Carney to the White House in the first meeting between the two leaders. In the last couple of hours, they held a meeting in the Oval Office and Carney was asked about Trump's threat of making Canada a 51st state of the US. Here is what he had to say.
There would be a lot of advantages, but it would be a massive tax cut. And it's also a beautiful, as a real estate developer, I'm a real estate developer at heart. When you get rid of that artificially drawn line, somebody drew that line many years ago with like a ruler, just a straight line right across the top of the country. When you look at that beautiful formation when it's together, I'm a very artistic person, but when I looked at that beauty, I said, that's the way it was meant to be. But, I do feel it's much better for Canada.
As you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, Buckingham Palace that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever.
But never say never. Never say never.
To discuss this and all of today's stories, I'm joined by Shane McGinley, news editor at Arabian Gulf Business Insight and senior presenter at Al Arabiya News, Rauya Alami. Thank you both for joining me. There we are, Donald Trump meeting Mark Carney. It was a little bit of a raucous meeting, I'm not going to lie, when I did watch it. Rauya, the former Bank of England Governor Mark Carney, he's vowed to stand up to Donald Trump before this face-to-face in the Oval Office. How did it go?
I think from watching the sort of body language and all the gestures, it looked like it was a friendly meeting. We can sort of, compare it to the meeting with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Definitely not like what happened with Volodymyr Zelensky. Having said that, I think, Mark Carney said repeatedly after he was elected that he was elected to stand up to President Trump. I think in a way he did, because he reiterated time and again during that meeting in the Oval Office that Canada is not for sale. It will never be for sale. And that's what we saw at the end, President Trump commenting, never say never. So in that sense, he did stand up to him. But I mean, we're yet to see what are the outcomes of the negotiations to reach a deal on tariffs and other issues that are pending between the two countries.
And that's the thing, isn't it, Shane? I don't know what you think. There seems to be a few more meetings ahead, a lot of diplomacy to really happen.
Well, yeah, there's going to be a lot of diplomacy, and so they'll set, I think, the sort of the ground rules and the sort of flavour of it from the top. But it'll basically be the civil servants who are paid the money to get the nitty gritty. But to be honest, the whole 51st state thing, I don't buy anyway. I think it's sort of a distraction, and it's sort of a Trumpian sort of card to play, so that people will focus all the headlines on that and not really then focus on the sort of the business and the tariffs. So I think it's just, at the end of the day, Trump came from a TV presenter background, so he knows what sound bites are like and he knows what people will focus on. So I don't really think the 51st state is really a sort of a credible aim. It's just sort of having a bit of fun, really. That's my opinion. Anyway. Do you think it's real?
I'm not sure, to be honest, but in whichever case, it did help Mark Carney to win this election. And in fact, I remember the day after he won, most newspapers basically wrote describing the victory and saying that President Trump is responsible for it, basically. He brought it about because of that threat that he wants to make Canada the 51st state, and also his policies on tariffs made the Canadians feel more nationalistic and basically choose who they think can stand up for Trump. But the thing is that the difference that Carney is not Trudeau, and Justin Trudeau was disliked
Very
by
unpopular,
Trump.
yeah.
Very
Yeah.
unpopular by, Trump didn't like him, and even the Canadians towards the end didn't like him. And therefore, I think he stands more of a chance
I
of
think so.
doing
And
things for Canada.
it's a good time that Trudeau stepped aside and they have a new leader, because then, you can't focus all of the sort of vitriol that Trump had against Trudeau before. But I think at the end of the day, Mark Carney he's a banker. He's going to look at the numbers, and at the end of the day, Canada is very reliant on the US in terms of trade, so he can only push it so far. So I think he's going to be caught between the mandate that the Canadian voters have given him versus the reality of how much he can actually do. But I think because the tariff plan hasn't really gone fully successful, I think is a moderate way of describing it, that he does have some leeway, and this 90-day extension that was given. So I think when you look at how much Canada is dependent on the US and how its economy has been impacted already, he has to find a way of appealing to Trump and basically getting a deal, which I think Carney probably can, because he steered England through the Brexit negotiations. So if he can do that, I think he can do anything.
But talking about how much Canada is dependent on the US, we're talking about 77% of Canadian imports go to the US.
But then, yes, it's absolutely huge, and they are really intrinsic. If you think about their economies, they are allies.
Extremely
they
connected.
are basically right on each other's borders. And I think Donald Trump actually said, we're always going to protect Canada when it comes to the military.
Yeah.
He did say that. He also alluded to the election and said that he helped influence the election.
He's aware
in
of it.
Canada.
Yes.
He's aware of it.
Yeah.
So I do think that realistically, there is still a relationship there. And, Americans and Canadians, no matter what we say, are very close.
They are, yes.
Yeah, I think so. And it's right what you said about the election. If you look at also the Australian election, that was influenced. I think every single election that is going to happen from now on is going to be, and it'd be interesting to see if the pro-Trump or the anti-Trump ones are the ones that start to win out. So far, it seems to be the ones that will sort of, stick up against Trump. So it will be interesting. I'm not sure which elections will be coming up soon. Obviously, England is fine at the moment, but it will be interesting to see. And I think I was saying earlier about how there's a lot of the governors of some of the US states are meeting with their Canadian counterparts. So again, they're looking to sort of strike some deals at the lower level, which I think won't be as headline grabbing because they're not presidents and it's not Trump. But I think a lot of these governors will probably be able to do some sort of deals on their level.
Yeah.
And you just mentioned the UK there. I know we don't have an election, but we did have by-elections, and we obviously saw Reform do really well. And if you think about it, Nigel Farage and Donald Trump have been friends, closely linked. Nigel Farage had a place in the re-election of Donald Trump. So there is that kind of rhetoric happening in the UK now. But if we move on to the UK, this is a nice way to segue into Carney has invited King Charles ahead of a meeting. Explain why and what's going on here.
Yeah, this is very significant, and it's hugely important because obviously King Charles is also the head of state in Canada. So he's going on, I think it's on May 27th, to open the new parliament, and that hasn't been done for. Did you say it was maybe
1977 was the last time that a British monarch actually read the monarch speech at the opening of a Canadian parliament.
Yeah.
That was obviously Queen Elizabeth. And now, 48 years later, King Charles is due to deliver that speech.
And I think
this is very significant.
That could be like a sort of literally a crown jewel in the negotiations, because the last time I was on the show, we spoke about how Trump and King Charles have a very cordial relationship.
Yes.
So he's not really going to make it the 51st state if that's basically taking away...
From the British royal family.
Yeah, exactly. So,
And Trump obviously is a big fan of the British
He
royal
is.
family and of King Charles. And do you remember when Starmer went to see him, he gave him a letter from King Charles to invite him over to the UK. So I'm sure that will happen at some point too. But it's so interesting, isn't it, at the moment? Just, I feel like Carney was elected last month.
Yeah.
And he's already at the White House. We know Donald Trump likes to get things done quickly. And it sort of seems like this is happening, isn't it? The negotiations are now coming to the fore between Canada and the US. And I wonder if we're going to see some tariff deals.
I'm not sure whether the invitation or it was basically pushed by the Americans, this meeting in the Oval Office that happened today, or by the Canadians. But in whichever case, because Carney has marketed himself throughout his campaign as the savior of Canada, the person who's going to stand up for Trump, who's going to get the, fight to get the best deal, tariff deal for Canada, then, he cannot postpone. He needs to address this as soon as possible. So it makes sense that
it goes back to what we were saying about the business side of it, and I think like the oil price is something that will definitely be on the cards, because that has been under the control of Donald Trump, and that has dropped considerably, and it's one of Canada's main exports. So they would obviously prefer that it was a lot higher, while Trump would prefer it was a lot lower. So that's sort of going to be a massive sticking point. So I don't think there'll be like a tariff deal, so to speak, but maybe when it gets closer to, when Charles is over, they might go another few more rounds and see what happens. But it's interesting that...
I mean, these things take time. These negotiations between the two teams, they take time. And I suppose it is, even though Canada needs this deal ASAP, but probably to get a good deal, they need to negotiate properly and take their time doing it.
Yeah, there were plenty of rounds, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I just wanted to mention one last thing. Donald Trump said he's going to announce something really, really big. It's coming before his trip to the Middle East. We know he'll be coming here. Pure speculation. But he is saying that something massive's going to happen. And I just wonder what it could be.
I think he probably just thought of it on the top of his head, and like it goes back to the TV presenter sort
it's
of
a media stunt,
the Apprentice style thing. It's kind of like tune into next season. There's a big announcement coming, so he may not even know himself, I think.
It could be something to do. I mean, there are a lot of negotiations about
the
tariff deals with so many different countries. Maybe there's a breakthrough.
Do you have any ideas what you think it should be?
No, what do you think?
No.
Well, peace in Ukraine would be not right now.
Oh, yeah?
In Ukraine?
Ceasefire deal?
That would be amazing.
Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll have to wait and see. But Donald Trump has really got the ball rolling. We can't deny that. And he's not been in office for he's been there
just over 100 days. I mean, he's great at starting sort of, the role on something. But, I mean, we haven't seen anything finished.
Maybe this is a big announcement. But really good thoughts there. Thank you so much. So stay with us and we'll be right back with you. Now to our next story. Russia still intends to go ahead with a planned 72-hour ceasefire from Thursday, despite recent attacks. Russia targeted the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv after Ukrainian drone attacks on Moscow forced the closure of the city's airports overnight. Dmitry Peskov said the Kremlin had not heard from Ukraine in regards to the three-day ceasefire and warned the country would respond if Ukraine did try to strike. Earlier, our correspondent Dasha Chernyshova explained whether or not the strikes could affect Moscow's World War II parade, which is happening this week.
Well, indeed, we have seen the barrage of the Ukrainian drones attacking the Russian regions. Moscow alone has been attacked by at least 19 drones that have been shot by the Russian air defense systems overnight. All 4 international airports in Moscow have been temporarily shut. And actually, later in the day, when they were already reopened, there was another suspension in air traffic because more Ukrainian drones attacked the Russian capital. The Kremlin, however, is saying that the work of the Russian air defense systems is efficient. That's the official statement statement from Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov, and undoubtedly Moscow is tightening its security for the holding of the festivities of the Victory Day. Moscow has already announced that there will be mobile connectivity disruptions throughout the celebrations, and also we know that Moscow will be hosting many international leaders, and undoubtedly Moscow is doing everything possible to make sure that things go smoothly, but Moscow is prepared to any provocation by the Ukrainian side. We had the confirmation from the Kremlin aide Yuri Ushakov that there will be indeed veterans from the United States as well as Israel, Armenia and Mongolia attending the ceremonial events. And on top of that, we know that there will be decorated troops from some countries that will be also marching through Moscow's Red Square in this victory parade. And undoubtedly, that's a very important signal. Moscow also will be hosting at least 29 heads of states. Moscow says it is also very important because it shows that Moscow is not isolated, and it does show that there are many countries worldwide that are willing to celebrate this important holiday in the Russian capital. As for the potential of leveling this up, we've heard before that there were reports of a potential high-level American guest attending those events, but no official confirmation has come so far with regard to that.
Now, a bill approved by the Spanish government today is set to improve the work-life balance for citizens by reducing the number of hours they work each week. It will reduce the standard work week from 40 hours to 37.5, impacting an estimated 12.5 million workers in the public sector. Rauya, Spain's Vice President and Labour has praised this decision, stating today we are modernising the world of labour and helping people to be a little bit happier. What else does it say?
Well, the bill basically, as you just said, it aims at reducing the working week from basically 40 hours to 37.5. We're talking about the private sector, by the way, because that already applies on civil servants and other sectors as well. So now this bill is specifically for the private sector. It says that it helps people be happier, it helps their well-being, it's better for their work-life balance, and it's expected to improve productivity and reduce absenteeism as well, because you'll have less people being absent from work, and it is modernizing world of labor. Now, this is not new, by the way. Maybe it is. This bill is new in Spain for the private sector, but in the world we have so many examples of countries that have tried this. One of them is the UK that keeps doing different trials about this, but Iceland did a trial from 2015 to 2019, and basically they reduced the working week from 5 days to 4 days, and the findings were quite astonishing that there wasn't any decrease in productivity. Productivity either stayed the same or was improved. And you have other countries that have been trying to do similar trials, like Scotland, Ireland, New Zealand, now Spain as well. So largely the findings are, does it basically impact productivity? And it said, well, the findings are, it does not impact them negatively. It either stays the same or the productivity is better. I don't know, but it has pros and cons as well.
Yeah, and
there's
been a push for similar moves in this part of the world. Like last year, we reported on Kuwait was looking to do a 4-day week, and actually reduce the hours. I think it was Bahrain that was going for a 3-day weekend, which I would quite like actually.
Yeah, me too.
The UAE did as well.
Yeah,
now we have
we
four and a
changed
half day weeks, and even Sharjah, one of the Emirates, has a 3-day weekend.
Exactly, and in Sharjah there was an independent report done, and they show that 90% of the people show that there was higher productivity. So I think it can work, but I think it really depends on the industry. It's not going to work for every single industry.
Yeah. I was thinking that earlier, and we were talking about that. It's going to be really dependent if you can just leave work and that's it, or if you still have to stay and finish your job. But 2.5 hours less work, right? This is what
we were talking about
happening.
this. Yes.
I mean, what can you really do in 2.5 hours?
Well, Spain traditionally has the siesta culture anyway.
Yes.
So I wonder, are they going to put like the 2.5 hours in the middle of the day, or are you going to get it off, or are you going to come in 2.5 hours sort of later? So it'll be interesting to see.
I doubt. It doesn't make sense to put it in the middle of the day. But then you have families that have children that put them in daycare. So this way they'll spend more time with their families and their children. They'll cut costs on daycare and, you know, nursery fees and stuff like that. I mean, there are benefits from it. 2.5 hours is not little.
I think there's different things you can do. Like a friend of mine works for a German company
sleep in
Dubai,
a little bit more.
Yeah.
They have sort of flexi time, which I think is so you can come in a little bit later and then work a bit later, and you build up sort of credit. So I think that system is amenable, and you know, be better for, you know, mothers with childcare, or if you just want to drop somewhere early in the morning. So I think there is different sort of labour sort of rights and laws. But for example, like if you're a doctor, I don't think this is going to work in Spain.
There are certain, definitely industries. Yeah. Maybe you're looking at it from a journalist point of view, where it's constant work. When you're at home, you're still basically following the news and everything. So there are certain industries where this cannot really apply to, like media, like hospitality.
And hospitality.
Yeah, and in most cases, in these kind of initiatives, the salary stays the same, but the hours get reduced. So that means, like, for example, if it was a coffee shop, they'll need more staffing to cover or reduce the opening hours, which means they'll have less revenue. So that means their costs will go up, which that does mean that if it's a restaurant, are they going to have to put up their prices? So it sounds great in theory, but I think the economic and business side, which I always come back to,
yes, of course,
will impact.
I actually wanted to ask you about that because, you know, during COVID, I was living in London, and a lot of people obviously live in big cities. And what really happened is a lot of people were working from home, and it was the economy in the city that really suffered. So your sandwich shops, your coffee shops, where people go to have lunch, you know, all those kind of places took a real fall. And I wonder if we shouldn't just be thinking, get everyone back to work, get them spending.
But weren't there these places closed anyways because of COVID, and they didn't want any social, you know, like
it was on the reopening, because you remember they staggered it, didn't they? You could come back 2 days a week, then 3 days a week. So it gave people that option. So now the argument is, don't give people that option, make them come back into the office,
so that the local shops will benefit.
Well, it'd be interesting to see what impact in Spain it has on traffic, because they've tried. I remember there was a recommendation in Dubai where people work different hours so that not everyone is going to work and leaving work at the same time. So, and you know, everybody talks about the traffic in Dubai. So it'd be interesting to see as a case study in Spain whether there is any sort of impact on that, and whether the people who have the 2.5 hours less a week, how they'll, you know, maybe rush hour will change or something like that.
We'll see that sort of translated on the roads, hopefully.
We'll
but it is such an interesting debate, and I think that it's one that we've been having a lot more since the pandemic, really, I think, about working hours. And I think COVID really changed our view of how we had to work.
But I think we've forgotten all of that we learned in that. Like, there was a big sort of, work from home, it'll all be fine. But I think even in America, I think that's all sort of washing back. And like you said, in a lot of the big banks and a lot of the big institutions in Canary Wharf and various places, they're sort of rolling back on that. So I think at the end of the day, people will look at the P&L and how revenue is going, and then the first thing they'll say is, we want people back in the office where we can see productivity.
But in terms of trends, if you look at even in Spain, in 1983, the working hours were reduced from 48 to 40 as they stand right now. And now they're basically going to reduce them even more to 37.5. So to me, it seems like this is the trend, as if there's a fight between the old school of work and management, which is represented by older managers who believe that everybody should be at work for that length of time. It's about how many hours you put in rather than what productivity you produce, basically.
Absolutely.
And how productive are you? Between the old school and the new school, with the younger managers who are more interested in the outcome, the productivity of the employee rather than how many hours he puts in.
And also their well-being, I think a lot of
this
them.
is very important, of course,
I think
the
that's really
balance.
important. But it's such an interesting debate because I feel like we've been having it ever since work from home really became a thing, something I wasn't good at. But I must admit something. Shane did tell me he would watch 2.5 hours of Netflix.
Yeah.
He didn't say. He just didn't want to say it live.
You can go to the gym.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much you can do.
I could one day, yeah, maybe.
You can come with me and Raul.
Possibly,
We'll
yes.
take you to a class.
Yes.
Yeah, a cycling
Yoga
class.
or something.
Yeah. Okay, now let's move on to our next topic. Last night, stars from around the world attended the Met Gala in New York City. It's one of the most famous fashion events attended by some of the biggest names in the world of film, entertainment and music. This year, the theme was superfine tailoring black style, and it was also the first time since 2003 that the event focused exclusively, and that was actually on menswear. So, Rawia, this was the first show, as we said, dedicated to designers of colour. Hugely significant?
I think it is hugely significant in the time that we're in right now in the world with everything that's happening, and also because Met Gala has focused on menswear since 2003, so it's about time. But we have to bear in mind also that when in October, when it was announced what the theme of this year's Met Gala party is going to be, we had Kamala Harris as the first Black American woman running for president.
Yeah.
Nowadays, the world has changed since then, especially in the United States. So I think it's very significant and very telling compared to what's happening, especially if you think of Anna Whitmore, the editor-in-chief of Vogue that actually basically organizes this entire event, and she is a known Democrat and a Democrat fundraiser as well. So, yeah, there are sort of political messages behind it, I think, as well.
Have you felt left out that it's only been dedicated to menswear now?
Well,
Long time, 2003, the last time it was.
It feels in now.
Yeah, do you feel like,
Are you inspired?
you're
By
inspired?
the fashion?
Not really, to be honest. I think it was like this morning I woke up and I always read the Mail Online, like it's a lot of people, and I didn't really see huge coverage of it. So I thought, oh, maybe my algorithms have changed or something. But I think it shows that in terms of sort of the demographic of people who are probably looking at the Met, I think that has probably dropped, and I think it's not probably as significant and as groundbreaking as it used to be.
Yes, definitely.
And I think that's because it's so polarized. Like you said, it is sort of seen as a predominantly Democrat event. But that said as well, I went way into the research and I was thinking, how prominent is Vogue and Anna Wintour really in this day and age, and has her power diminished? But actually, Vogue is still has very good and strong circulation, and it's only dropped by a tiny amount. And in this day and age, for print magazines to be still quite holding, it says a lot. So I think, her sort of weight on who's on the guest list and who's on and who's off probably holds a lot of weight in society in, say, New York. But I think to the general American public, I think less and less of them are probably
It's more like an exclusive event, if you want, because we're talking about 400 guest lists, only 400.
I can't believe that.
And the guest list changes, obviously, every year.
Yeah, I would have thought it was.
And they make a lot of money. I mean, it's all a show of, art and fashion, and it's quite outrageous sometimes. But they actually make between sponsorships and tickets, they make between $15 to $20 million annually, especially in the last few years. And that's a significant number.
Well, the fact that Anna Wintour said that she'll never invite Donald Trump, does that mean we're going to get a lot of tariffs on haute couture and fashion?
Possibly. Well, there are tariffs on movies now, to save Hollywood. So, yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows?
But that's one thing. You mentioned Donald Trump because obviously Anna Wintour said that he wasn't going to invite him. This was during a chat show that she did a while back. She wasn't going to invite him back. But it seemed to be like a lot of people who supported Donald Trump were almost missing. We didn't see those big-time stars on the blue carpet it was
That's
last
very
night.
true. Like Elon Musk, sort of Jeff Bezos, who have attended in before. But so it's hard to know whether they were invited and turned it down, or whether they just weren't invited in the first place, because a lot of the the guest list changes every year. But there was some sort of standard bearers, like I think it was Naomi Campbell and Sarah Jessica Parker, who you always expected to be.
Jennifer Lopez, she didn't.
So they
yeah,
weren't really there. They all claimed that they had other things that they had on their plate, but everybody knows when the Met Gala is coming up. So I think that's kind of.
But I think also some celebrities, artists and actors have like a stand against the Met Gala years before. We're talking about people like Jennifer Garner, who said that she will not attend after having a bad experience in 2007. Zayn Malik also said in 2016 that he's not going to. Amy Schumer as well. So I think some artists see it as just a show of extravaganza that is not very relevant to, to what they want to.
Yeah, and there's so much going on in the world now if we think of it. But Kamala Harris did slip through the side door. That seems, because there's always controversy at the Met, isn't it? It's over an outfit or over something that might have gone wrong. But this seems to be what a lot of people are focused on today. Yeah,
I think because she was probably, prime and center when they thought that she was going to be, President Kamala Harris.
Yes.
And, former vice president, it doesn't really cut the same mustard, really, does it? But I think at the end of the day, this is to promote and raise money for museums. So I think in my book, that is pretty positive.
Yeah.
If it gets more Americans into museums, then that's a good thing.
By the way, Kamala Harris didn't make it to the red carpet. She slipped in, as you said, from a side door, and she was attending a fundraiser that night as well. She looked good, though, in black and white sort of silk dress by Off-White, if I remember correctly, the brand. And there's a significance to her being there.
Definitely.
Being a Democrat.
But the outfits, just quickly, pretty outrageous, Rawia. I don't think I could go out in them.
Definitely not.
I don't think there's many of the dresses ever you could really go out in. I think that's
it's about menswear.
Yeah.
Would you wear anything that sort of...
No. Maybe...
Up in the pictures.
Could we get you a pinstripe suit? Pinstripes were in, and a hat, and a hat.
Well, it is like 45 degrees in Dubai now. That would be quite nice, really, with a big piano across the top.
Yeah.
The piano, my God, yes. Yeah, we're going to have a look at some of the
pictures. I do love looking at it just for the fact that it's so outrageous. It's something that you would never think of, and it is quite amazing in a way. But yeah.
But I'll go on the record, like, I would like to be invited next year, so I would like to go.
Okay, so Anna Wintour, if you're listening, Shane here in Dubai would like to come to the next Met Gala, and he will give you a big charitable sum.
I'll skip.
Okay, well, stay right there. We'll be back with you in just a moment. Now to our next story. It's a classic cartoon series featuring America's famous family, but fans of The Simpsons believe the show has the ability to predict the future. From Trump's presidency to artificial intelligence to Ebola, the TV show's creators have grabbed global attention for its accurate depictions. Here's an example.
We've inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump. How bad is it, Secretary Van Houten?
We're broke.
The country is broke? How can that be?
Well, remember when the last administration decided to invest in our nation's children? Big mistake.
Earlier, I spoke to former Simpsons writer, Emmy Award-winning Bill Oakley about the show's fascinating predictions.
The one you just played about President Trump is by far the most remarkable prediction The Simpsons has made. And there was another one about Disney buying Fox. And a lot of these were things that were they're inspired by real events. President Trump had already, when that was written, had already run for president in some sort of minor way in the 90s. And Disney had already bought up a lot of other companies. So in many cases, it's kind of extrapolating in a funny way what could happen. I think you'll probably continue to exist. I would say, though, in terms of TV channel, I think people under 30 really don't know the difference between content that comes from YouTube or TikTok versus content that comes from the BBC or NBC in America. It's all the same. It's all video to them. So in reality, companies want to spend a lot of money producing expensive content when the same kind of thing could get just as many eyeballs for nothing on TikTok. And that's unfortunately where the business is right now, because there is, there's so much competition from so many other sources, not just videos online, but video games and so forth, that television is a much riskier proposition than it used to be. So it's kind of like being in the newspaper business was in like 2004.
So Rawia and Shane, just a quick thought each on The Simpsons.
I think it's not that outrageous that they can predict the future. It's not about predicting the future. We're talking about a show that has been running for decades. They have 36 seasons. Each season is 20 to 25 episodes. So we're talking about what? 800, maybe 800?
Yeah, nearly 800, yeah.
800 episodes, statistically, and they talk about everything. Social trends, everything that's happening in the world, global issues, American issues. Statistically, they're bound to hit something, to predict something, and it turns out right. The odds,
are pretty good. And,
and
I think some of the things that I looked into is that they predicted a President Ivanka Trump, which could be interesting.
And I asked Bill Oakley that, will Ivanka Trump be the first US female president? And he said to me, he's not going to answer that question. So there we are. That leaves that prediction. No, it's not far-fetched. But actually, it's time to hear your stories of the day, Rawia and Shane. And Shane, you found us all a new place to live. I'm not sure about this, but you've worked on a cruise ship. You've got more skin in the game than me. So what's happening?
So this is a cruise ship where you can go and live like permanently, and it's 1,000 people. It's launching in 2028, and the tagline they've used is "You'll live happier and healthier," which. Like I said, I have worked on a cruise ship, and people generally put on a lot of weight because, yes, you'll be happier, but it's just endless food
all the
time.
So the food will be provided for you?
Yeah. So
wow. Okay.
You pay for it, though.
Yeah. I think they said they did part of the sort of marketing thing is that if you live on the cruise ship, the cost of it will be sort of less. But I was thinking about it, would I like to live on a cruise ship, day in, day out? The positives are obviously that you stop off at a different port every couple of days. The downside is that there's generally very little greenery on cruise ships. I miss that, if being from Ireland, and we do have quite a lot of greenery in the parts of Dubai, but also as well, like it can get very rocky when you go through some of the seas, like if you go up to the North Sea, and also how are you supposed to keep in contact with your friends and your family if you're on the other side of the world for half of the year? So personally, I think I would rather stick to maybe like 2 weeks every 6 months as opposed to living there permanently 24/7, because you're not going to see anybody else other than the couple, or the 1,000 people that are on the ship and the staff. So I think it's a nice concept. Maybe like when it's so hot in Dubai, you could get a helicopter to the ship and
to the cruise ship.
You need to be making a specific amount of money to be able to afford this.
Absolutely.
Well, for me, it's no can do. I get seasick.
Oh, well, yeah, that's
very hard.
And so do I.
Yeah.
I know. But Rawia, you've got a story, and it made me laugh. It's when orders go really horribly
it's every
wrong.
Mother's nightmare,
Yeah,
basically.
so orders just go so wrong online when it comes to children.
They do, and not just that, we save our credit card details on our phones and on websites as well, and it's scary. Well, what happened with this Kentucky woman, her 8-year-old son ordered 70,000 lollipops worth $4,000 worth of lollipops, and she was surprised. She tried to stop it, she couldn't, and then she was surprised with piles and boxes of lollipops at her doorstep.
So that kid's going to be very popular in school.
Well, that's why apparently the kids bought them for all the
distribute?
friends.
How are they going to give? We're talking about 70,000 lollipops.
Do you think she can send them back?
I don't think so. But also, is a part of you thinks like, would the supplier not think is this some sort of strange anomaly? But how many people would buy that level of stock?
That actually crossed my mind. But then we have to bear in mind that probably on the other side there isn't a human being basically looking and thinking, oh, that doesn't make sense. It's all automated.
Yeah.
So you could order 70,000 or 700,000 or 7. It'll be the same for the machine. basically.
It is frightening, isn't it? Because like we said, all our details are literally on our phones. We could be one click away from 17,000 lollipops. I'm not sure how I feel about it. 70?
Yeah, 70.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if anyone wants to send us a lollipop, you know where you are. And that's all we've got time for. Thanks to today's guest, Shane McGinley, news editor at Arabian Gulf Business Insight, and Al Arabian News senior presenter, Rawia Alami. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney insists some places are never for sale whilst meeting President Trump at the White House. And the Kremlin warns Kyiv against attacks as Russia pushes ahead with its planned 72-hour ceasefire. And that's all from us on W News. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and also follow us on X. GNT with Tom Burgess-Watson is coming up next. Goodbye and thank you for joining us.